All right, and we are live with a special Burkart Flutes and Piccolos edition of a Screw Loose. We are so excited to be here tonight. Screw Loose is Kim Jurens of Kimberly Jurens Woodwind Repair on the west coast of Canada. We have Adam Petrie from Georgia joining us of Petrie Piccolos. Rachel Simon is the flute mechanic. She's from Pennsylvania. And myself, Sarah Stockton from Boundless Flute in Connecticut. And Team Burkhardt, we're so excited to have so many of you guys here with us tonight. We have Ethan Lin-Schwartz. He is the sales manager at Burkhardt, and Ellen Fillion is the production manager. And we're excited to have her talk about all the technical aspects of Burkhardt's. And one of my favorite things about Burkhardt's, I'll finish intros before I go on that. Okay. And then we have Daniel Carlo, who is a flute and piccolo specialist for Burkhardt. And wow, thank you guys so much for being here with us tonight. You guys are the first of the Boston flute makers that we've had on the show, and we're so excited. Rachel has roots with you guys, so I know that you are near and dear to her heart, and she seems to have disappeared.
She'll come back.
Oh, there we go. Okay, Rachel. Oh, she's back.
I'm so sorry. I don't know how.
Welcome. Thank you so much for being here.
Well, thank you, Screw Loose, you guys so much for having all of us. And it's so funny you said Team Burkhardt. I really think it speaks volumes of you four that really the three of us were fighting, like, who gets to be part of this? So we came to a solution that why not just have it all three of us, right?
You know, it's Zoom. We can fit everybody, right?
Exactly. And thank you for, having us as the first Boston flute and piccolo maker. Being part of this live session.
Absolutely. We're so excited. So should we kick things off with a little bit of history?
Sure, absolutely.
Okay.
And I think, Daniel, you have something prepared for us?
We do. We have a little slideshow here.
Ooh,
I'm going to do some Zoom magic, hopefully. Don't get too excited. I mean, we've got some pretty photos.
There's like a mediocre slideshow. Is that what you're like?
No.
This is fantastic. Come on.
Okay.
Lillian,
it's going to be great.
She does.
We dug into the treasure troves of Burkhardt to share some good photos with you guys. So yeah, history about Burkhardt. Burkart Flutes and Piccolos, I should say, wouldn't be complete without a little bit of backstory on our founder and president, Lillian Burkhardt. So here she is. We've got actually a shot of Lillian in our current shop on the left, and obviously a photo, I would say, from back in the day on the right. So a little bit about Lillian. She was born into a musical family. Not many people know, I don't think, that her dad was a trumpet professor at Ohio State.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, so she had musical roots and a musical upbringing. And then at the age of 10, she fell in love with the flute. Let's see here. She was a student of John Krell, throwing it back for people who know their flute history. When she was at the Settlement Music School studying in Philadelphia. So for those who might not know, John Krell was in the flute section with William Kincaid, longtime piccolo player of the Philadelphia Orchestra. So that was Lillian's teacher while she was doing her, upper schooling, her college days. And it was really in Philadelphia that she sort of stumbled across her love for repair, is really where it all started. So she noticed that the person who was in that area who did all the repairs was really quite overloaded and wasn't going to be able to train her to do anything in terms of repair. So she later went to one of the Boston flute makers to get some training, repair, flute making, that sort of thing. And really there is where the story all starts for Burkhardt. So we'll skip to the next slide here. We have more of Lillian obviously there. We do have Jim. also
There's
one of
me.
the founders.
Oh, it's Rachel.
Rachel's in the background.
Yes.
Sorry, keep talking.
Sorry, let's just
Thanks
derail
to
your
photo.
slideshow.
I'm glad you noticed. I'm glad you noticed. So here we do have Jim Phelan, the other founder and business partner of Lillian for Burkart Flutes and Piccolos. So the two of them met while they were working at this Boston flute company. Burkhardt was incorporated in 1982 to offer some like additional subcontract work, outside work to that company. At that time, working on piccolos. So then it really wasn't until that went on for a certain amount of time, a number of years, and then really overwhelming demand for a new piccolo on the market eventually led Lillian to sort of break off from that company and do her own thing. The company in 1984 moved to Stoneham, Massachusetts. If people are familiar with Massachusetts and keeping track of where we are, that's stop number 2. Then shortly after that, or for the years that followed that, really, I think it was 1986 up until the end of the 1980s, Jim was really pursuing his own education. And Jim has a background as an engineer. So he wanted to further that education during that time. He finished up an engineering degree at Northeastern. And after that, that led him to do quite a bit of work with designing, let me read all these off, electro beam guns, automobile components, and surgical instruments. Nice. So he was utilizing all of his engineering knowledge. Anyone that knows Jim knows that ultimately he was able to sort of bring the 21st century knowledge, engineering, all of that technology to flute making. So that's how, you know, him and Lillian were able to partner in those beginning days really well. You know, Lillian with the knowledge of the instrument, and then Jim being able to bring that technical expertise, the engineering side of things. So things, I would say, my commentary at this point is things were sort of simmering under the surface, because it wasn't until 1990 when the Lillian Burkart Piccolo was then released. So if anyone is familiar with Burkart, or maybe you're not, there's sort of a number of different instruments. Really, the Lillian Burkart Piccolo is the equivalent to our now branded Elite Piccolo. And we'll talk more about instruments and specifications and what that all means. But anyway, that was really the first instrument to launch into the market, was the Lillian Burkart Piccolo, which then 6 years later in 1996 prompted the Lillian Burkart Flute. So the piccolo was so well received, you know, she had put out an instrument that people were raving about. And then I think the common question at that time was, why don't you make flutes? So then the coming years after 1990 were spent developing the flute. That was released to the market in mid 1990s. And then from there, there were more inquiries, I guess, that prompted the release of our Burkart Phelan Piccolo and Burkart Phelan Flute. So those have both since been rebranded as the professional flute and the professional piccolo. And those really were brought about because either Lillian and the company had launched the high-end custom instruments. And then people were saying, well, how can I get something at a different price point? And those instruments were developed to satisfy that market as well. And that's kind of a theme that we'll notice. I think this will come out as we talk more about Burkhardt tonight, is sort of this theme to be able to offer reliable quality instruments really at multiple price points, not just the super expensive high-end custom stuff, but being able to carry that through to a whole line of instruments that's accessible to everyone. So that then brings us to the launch of the global piccolo, which has now been named the Rizona Piccolo. And again, that's sort of brings to fruition that dream, I guess I would say, Lillian's, what would you call it? Her idea to be able to bring quality instruments really at every price point. And then really after we've got our full lineup of instruments, business was booming and we needed to relocate once again. So and then in 2006, that's when we ultimately relocated to our current facility, which is Phoenix Park in Shirley, Massachusetts. And it's where we are today. It's a really great facility. It's large for people who have probably been to Burkhardt or done the tour, that sort of thing. We occupy a 10,000 square foot space in this larger sort of manufacturing business park. The building itself is, actually, you know what? That is my cue.
Oh, there it is.
There it is.
A building.
The reveal.
Amazing.
Oh, there's a rope
building.
in there. Perfect.
We'll get to the rope. Oh, see, Rachel is
Sorry.
giving away the good stuff. So yeah, this is Phoenix Park. Like I said, we occupy really a relatively small portion of this building. A lot of times I'll show these pictures to people and they say, wow, Burkhardt is so big.
That's our
the
castle.
building is, yeah, right, the castle that is Burkhardt. But we really do. We occupy sort of a small portion of this much larger building. I think last time we checked, Ethan, they're close to
They have
60,
over 70 different businesses.
70,
Oh, wow.
70
Yep.
businesses. I mean, everything you can imagine. And a lot of manufacturing goes on in that building just because of the nature of the space. But like I said, we occupy about 10,000 square feet. This new space allowed us to have a fully equipped machine shop at sort of the back of the facility. We have obviously the instrument production area, which occupies the middle section, and then our beautiful testing room, which if we were under different circumstances, people would be coming and visiting and playing flutes in that space. I did include the picture of the rope. The building itself, it's a historic mill building. It was built in 1849. And it was originally like a cotton processing plant, and they would produce rope that you can see there. What you can't get a good gauge on is the scale of that photo. That's a very large piece of rope. It's like pretty chunky in diameter.
Like for boats and stuff, right?
I was like, these are
nautical
either-
ropes.
I was like, these are
Yeah,
either very small bricks or that's a really big rope.
Yeah. So that's what they made. And if you were to tour through our facility, you'd see there's a lot of the remaining like kind of hardware things like bolted to the ceiling, and it's a really cool, amazing space, really, for us, very historical for us to be in, and it has a lot of roots. Funny enough, Ethan, I was doing just a little bit more digging about Phoenix Park, and the original people who built the facility, turns out they were also commissioned later to build a dam for for the Shirley Lake, but the dam didn't work. It like malfunctioned and ended up flooding a whole bunch of things, and then they blamed it on the people that built the facility, and such a sordid past for really. I know. So
don't mess up a dam if you can help it.
Damn it.
Exactly. But anyway, that's the space that we occupy. I always like to point out our tower that you see at the front of the facility. Take a mental photo of that for those of you who are listening, because we'll come back to that and what it means for us. Last slide here in our history, just to give you a little bit more of a glimpse. Upper left is obviously our testing room. Things are a little shuffled around now. We don't have the signs up, but it in essence looks like that. It's a really gorgeous space, acoustically designed. There's a beautiful piano. We also do all of the testing of our instruments there. So when things are finished and moving along in the process, we'll go in there and test. And then for kicks, because I know we have quite a few technically minded people here and tuning in, I also included the photo on the right, one of our machinists there. He's at his desk. You can kind of peer through that window that he's got and see a few of the CNC machines, a view kind of to the back of the shop. And then lower left is one of the 3D renderings that we use pretty much on a daily basis when it comes to designing our instruments. We'll probably touch on this quite a bit later, but we do have a full-time mechanical engineer that works at Burkhardt. He's able to do these renderings, and when we're designing something or changing something, he's modeling it before we're even making it. So that's a little bit about us, a little bit about our facility, our history. I'm sure we can dive in a little bit deeper as we continue on.
Excellent, thank you.
Of course. Let me go ahead and stop sharing too while we're at it.
Cool. That was a beautiful little tour. I apologize for the noise in the background. My children are playing on their wheel. There's a bridge that goes across the top, and one likes to stand on it and then it makes a horrible noise, and they chose now to do it, of course. So
you wanted to make sure they were using it.
Yes, they are. So that was really great to see. I can't wait to hear what more you're going to say about that tower, because my mind went a lot of places. But anyway, so where do you guys what do you feel is most important to hit on next for our viewers?
It's up to you guys. Okay, we can talk about product. We can talk,
so we can do like product, we can do philosophy, we can like dive into some of the questions that we got. Totally up to you guys. What do you feel like is
know what, why don't we take a couple questions? We'll save the philosophy at the end, and then why don't we take a couple questions now?
Okay, great. Well, let's go for maybe the easy one first. This comes from Hans Erik Bay. He's a technician in Norway, and owns a flute shop. Very nice guy. He wants to know, are you planning to make alto flutes someday? And if so, will it be a Rizona or a Burkart?
Okay, well, so Hans Erik Bay, thank you for your question. We actually get that question a lot, and I know Daniel just talked for like 10 minutes, but he actually get this question more than the two of us. So Dan, why don't you take this one too?
Sure. So the answer is no. There are no plans to really ever make a Burkhardt alto flute. We get asked this question a lot. Ethan and I, salespeople, were on the road. People do ask this question, and then we try to go back to Lillian and say, oh, so and so asked, what any interest, and really it's not something that is in the works or that we plan to do ever. So when it comes to, there's a few things that make up that answer though. One of them is purely when it comes down to material and stocking, and from a cost perspective, for us to really make a different instrument. It's certainly not as simple as, I think we alluded to this before. We're not just doing what we already do, but make it bigger. It's not quite that simple. It's certainly not that easy when it comes to castings and 3D machining programs and material that we have to stock. All of those dimensions are completely different from pretty much everything we do for flutes and for piccolos. So probably not going to happen. Really not going to happen.
So no contrabasses either, hey?
It's a hard no. It's a hard no.
Yeah. And
all right.
It's funny. Well, to tag on to, not to keep talking, but to tag on to that, as we just saw from our company history, our roots are really with piccolo making. That's where we all started, and we've been able to pour. Lillian has been able to pour years and years of research and expertise into making that instrument what it is now. And years more research would have to go into making an alto flute.
This means like we're going to revive the E-flat flute.
Just
No.
expand the piccolo a
I
little bit.
I love Adam's face right now. He's like,
She's like, no.
He's like, oh God.
yeah. Wow. If that's the easy question, I can't wait for the next one. Sarah, hit us.
Well, that was easy because
Well,
the
okay,
answer is
so
like,
speaking of the tower,
Okay.
so tell us a bit about wood storage and the tower. And this is a question from Kim, actually.
It's
Okay.
because the tower's my favorite. I love the tower.
Well,
And-
I can actually answer that one.
Go for it.
So the tower, as we all saw from Daniel's picture, so that is actually where Burkhardt, we store some of our wood stock. So think of the wood like a piece of dish sponge. When when it's wet, there's moisture. When it's dry, it expands and the moisture escapes. And Massachusetts, it's actually the perfect place to season and age the wood because we get that really hot and humid summer and cold and dry now weather that we have. One day we're going to sell flutes in Hawaii. We're gonna do it. So that tower, so that tower is very special for us. It's where the wood is protected under the roof, but it does go through that natural season, and years. And when we get the wood, it's already 75 to 100 years old. It goes through another 8 to 10 years of aging in that tower before we start making the flute piccolo. So that's what the tower is.
That's great.
Yeah, it's not temperature controlled up there. It's what it is.
Yeah.
It's not. It is what it is. Yeah. So that's
This made me feel so much better as a player because I play Burkart Piccolo, and it mentally in my head, the fact that it had done that so many times, I don't know, it made me feel a little bit less, like I was being abusive if it was like a little chilly on the way to the rehearsal.
Well,
and that's how the wood gets its stability. Once it reaches the equilibrium, it's very stable, and that's what we want the players to feel confident in playing their piccolos.
Well, so you had mentioned, way back at the beginning, there was the Burkhardt and Fillion Global Piccolo, and that's what I actually have. And
We're big Burkhardt fans
I
here.
am not careful with that piccolo. And it's a tank. Like it's never cracked. It plays as beautifully now as it did when I got it. And, I never have to worry about it. And I think that's really a testament to how.
And that is one of Lillian's philosophies when it comes to a brand new piccolo, because we age our wood so well and the quality of our wood is so good. Once the players have it, enjoy it, play it. That's what we want our players to do. Yep.
That's excellent. So I think I have a question maybe for Ellen, but Ethan, you would be the one to know for sure.
We'll see.
Okay. All right. So we had someone ask, what makes Burkhardt's pinless mechanisms different from other pinless flutes?
Unfortunately, that's another question I'm going to take. I mean, Ellen can get into a little bit about the production aspect of it. Okay. And especially, I think right now it's a good time to let the listeners or viewers know that next week it's going to be Team Burkhardt again, but we're going to get into the more technical aspect of things. So this week is really more about just Burkhardt product, like you said, our philosophy, our history.
Yes.
So
and next week, just a quick introduction is for our Patreon members. So if you're not
sorry.
That's okay. So no, but it's a good place to say it.
But
so
you too can join.
You too can join our Patreon. So if you are a technician or wanting to learn about flute repair, that is a great place to be. Come and join us on our Patreon. It's patreon.com/flutetechtalk. And that session next week for our Patreon members, you all will hop onto this Zoom session with us and actually get to pick Burkhardt's brains.
Very cool.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yes.
That's amazing.
Exactly.
Okay.
So,
really very cool.
Yes.
Anyway, so microlink. I mean, flutists, we've all heard of pinless mechanism. So, I mean, long story short, a flute without pins, your keys move independently. There's less friction in between the keys, so they're light and fast. So our microlink is Burkhardt's unique take on the pinless mechanism. And you technicians will appreciate this. What set the microlink apart is the fact that first, all the adjustments are in its traditional places. So it's very friendly to work on. The bridge mechanism is made out of 10 karat white gold. So it's
number one favorite
stable.
feature.
There you go.
Doesn't bend.
It doesn't bend. It's sleek, and it's stable. And also when we know other pinless mechanism, once you take the main rod steel out, it's like a puzzle. And that adds another layer of instability to the adjustments. When you remove the Burkhardt mechanism, left hand, right hand, it comes off as a set. So that, again, adds stability to the mechanism. And actually, my personal favorite about our microlink is how light it is, because the lug where the adjustments are, and we don't need that extra bulky back connectors. So that eliminates a lot of weight or any like adjusting screw going on top of the back connector that adds even more weight. So we're able to eliminate all that. And that's why we love, and people love, our microlink.
Yes, we do.
Ellen, anything to add to that?
Add something anyway.
Well, I'm just going to add that with the microlink, it's not it's a great place with the adjustments, and our spring wire goes into them too. So it's an all-inclusive mechanism that just works really, really well.
Streamlined.
Yep.
It's tech friendly, which is nice because it means that we can spend more time working on the instruments and less time making faces at them.
Right. Like one thing I like about it is that, unlike the other pinless mechanisms, the adjustments are independent of the feet material. So when you adjust lost motion, you're not dealing with adjustment issues either. They're in their normal places and they're completely independent.
Right.
And that makes my job so much easier.
Yeah.
I like that they're a whole unit, so you're not trying to wedge that F key in.
And then that messes with the spring tension sometimes.
And then it messes with the spring tension, and it was supposed to be a 5-minute fix, and now it's a 50-minute fix, which wasn't what I planned.
Or
that's a different thing.
That embarrassing situation where you get like someone's like past model that was only there for like a short run, and it's like put together completely differently than every other flute that you've ever seen, and the client is sitting right there, and you're like, oh, how does this
time to figure it out?
See, there are advantages to COVID.
And like as technicians, I think we've all experienced the pressure of when someone's staring at you, putting together a pinless mechanism, and you're like, maybe I'll just angle it this way and cross my fingers and hope it'll fit, right? I think we've all done that. Yeah. But really, like, our microlink is one of a kind.
It's beautiful. Really, it's a beautiful thing.
Really.
Should we?
I had one here last week. It just got home to its flute mom.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Sorry, Sarah, you were saying, should we?
I was gonna say, do you want to keep going with questions? Do you want to jump into something else? Like, what's gonna?
Yeah, you know what? I think now we can talk a little bit about product.
Ooh, let's do it. Love it.
So,
so I think a little bit.
Yeah, I think the plan is we're going to go over some of the Burkhardt highlights, and then we're going to circle back to the Rizona line as well, because, you guys, I don't know if you guys know this, but we actually have a Rizona dealer on this grid. Raise your hand, Kim. Yes. So we'll circle back to that. But hey, Dan, how do you feel about taking the piccolos, and I'll take the flutes?
Yeah, that sounds great.
Okay, cool. So, we definitely offer your standard sterling silver. We offer the low carat, high carat gold. But what Burkhardt is really, really known for, I would say, is our unique silver offerings. And then I would say the top 3 on my list, it's actually 4, but we'll say 3 for now. The first one is our unique 595 platinum enhanced silver. So the number 595 stands for 5% platinum mixed with 95% silver. So it's an alloy, it's mixed together. And I always tell people, play the 595 as like driving a really fast sports car. It's like silver on steroid, because that sound just has so much directions, so much projection. Yeah. And it's got that signature Burkhardt zing and resonance. So it's a flute that's really fun to play. For people that never played the 595 before, when they first pick it up, I literally, it's always a couple notes and they put it down, they're like, what? Yeah, so 595, it's definitely a must try from Burkhardt, especially if you pair it with a platinum head joint. Yeah, it's really cool. And then the next one that's really popular for us that comes in both solder tone hole and drawn tone hole is the 9-karat gold on silver. So we call it the 9K/AG. So that material, it's a laminate, it's a layered material by really high heat. So it's about 20% 9-karat gold on the outside. So there's a significant amount of gold with 80% sterling silver underneath on the inside. And as a matter of fact, Daniel actually plays on our 9K gold on silver Elite. It really is kind of, I would say it's the best of both worlds. If you're looking for a gold flute, but it's got that silver brilliance, that really is the best flute for you. And also we get a ton of, I would say, doublers love that flute because, you know, they're able to cut through that pit orchestra, still not sounding too harsh. So that is a great flute. And it also just pairs really well with high karat gold head joint. And I think that's Daniel's setup, is a really high karat gold head joint with that 9K gold on silver. Now, the next two flutes, I'm partial to that because I play on one of them. The first one is our 998 silver. So regular sterling silver stands, it's 92.5%. So you see on jewelry, necklace, you know, bracelets, it has like 925 engraving. The 998 is 99.8% silver. So it's a really purified silver. And what that does is it's got that, you know, classic sterling silver ring to the sound, but much deeper. I think it's like a beefier, deeper sound of silver, which players really enjoy. And the reason why I started saying there are 3 flutes, but it's actually 4, is because several years back, and Rachel, you've seen my flute, right?
Of course.
Okay, yes, of course.
I've worked on it several times.
Yes.
It's very pretty.
Thank you. We're talking about the flute, right? Or no? No. So the reason why I said there's a 4th flute is because several years ago, and I want to, you know, I don't remember the year, but I want to say it was before the DC convention, the last DC convention. We make this 998 flute, and over the years, customers, for some reason, they love pairing this 998 flute with gold head joints.
Yes.
So and Ellen will remember this, when serial number 998 came up production line, you know, I went up to Lillian and I was so enthusiastic. I was like, Lillian, flute number 998 is coming up. Can we make a special 998 flute? And she was like, what do you have in mind? And I was like, well, people love playing gold head joints on the 998. Why don't we add some gold additions to the flute, such as tone holes and rings? And she was like, no.
I'm pretty sure that's what Ellen said too at the time.
I'm pretty sure Ellen said no too.
I think so.
She said, you know, it's going to cost so much money to make just that one flute. No. So I immediately went to Ellen. I was like, hold the serial number. I was like, give me more time. Literally, kid you not, 2 months. Every day I walk by Lillian's office. I'm like, that 998 number is still available. 998 number is still available. Broke her down. Finally, she was like, go make it. Go make
She wanted you to stop asking. She's like, I don't even care how much this costs.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing about, you know, salespeople. We're persistent. So
you just have creative vision, you know,
yeah, you know,
big picture.
I mean, what can go wrong, right? So we
don't ever say that.
Gold, silver.
Not to a room full of technical people.
Yeah. So we made it, and we debuted it at the DC convention. And that year, that flute took 6 orders at the booth.
Nice.
Everyone played that flute. Was like,
so how hard was it for you to not go, I told you so?
you know, I don't know if she's watching, but told ya. No. but you know, the thing is that flute, this special flute is really just embodied like the Burkhardt sound concept. It's robust, it's flexible, it's interesting. You know, it's got that silver but gold depth and warmth to the sound. So everyone that played that flute loved it. So, you know, we were able to take several orders off of that flute. And I would say that flute continued to be our demo flute for the next year and a half until we started producing them on a regular basis. And then eventually I bought that flute, and this is number 998.
Yay!
You
Yeah.
adopted it.
Yay!
So yeah, so this is the story with this flute, and then I do play on a Monka wood head joint full time, and we should talk about that later because it truly is a wonderful collaboration between Burkhardt and Monka. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So that's my product pitch on our.
That's a cool flute story. Like, you know, for a personal flute story, that's pretty sweet.
Yes.
Yeah. So
Hard to top that.
yeah, I mean, it's an honor to own like a piece of the Burkhardt history and my brain
First of its kind.
You know,
Yes.
so it's really cool. Yeah. So Dan, why don't you tell us about our piccolos?
Piccolos, yeah. So we talked a little bit about this during the history, but I'll flesh things out a little bit more. So if you recall, our first kind of instrument back in the day out to the market was the Lillian Burkart Piccolo. That over the years has been rebranded to our Elite Piccolo. Since I know we've got some Burkhardt enthusiasts around, the Elite Piccolo there used to be like two models of it. There used to be an Elite Deluxe and an Elite Custom. It is now kind of all condensed itself into one, what we would call our top of the line bells and whistles piccolo. So in that, I mean that the Elite Piccolo is really designed for the hardcore piccolo player or at least piccolo who really want to, you know, dig into everything that is piccolo. We're talking orchestral players. It's designed to be able to impart that really rich orchestral sound. With both of Burkhardt's models of handmade custom piccolos, we're talking granadilla wood, sterling silver mechanism, you know, fully handmade in our shop in Boston or in Shirley. So that's kind of a given for both of these models. The Elite Piccolo, like I said, bells and whistles, it comes standard with a split E mechanism. You have our G-sharp facilitator is a common feature that is highly recommended. It works a little bit differently than some other G-sharp facilitators that are out there. If you're familiar with your piccolo, it actually splits your thumb keys, your thumb exactly. And then when you go to, yep.
Yes.
We like anything that splits the thumb keys.
Exactly. So when you go to depress your G-sharp key, it partially closes your lower thumb to help you achieve that high G-sharp. Should it close, if it is closing all the way, you lose your high C. So it's a very carefully designed mechanism to give you that high G-sharp, which is sort of one of the many banes of existence of piccolo players. With the Elite Piccolo, yeah. With the Elite Piccolo, like I said, we can get fancy. We can add a gold mechanism. We very commonly will put gold tenons and rings on the gold fitting on that piccolo. So that's both the head joint and the body can have the gold end ring and the gold fitting. 14 karat gold is what we'll do. A vented C is an option. We offer a multi-trill key, which I think we're going to talk about probably later. I think Ethan will talk about that. Okay, good. We'll come back to that because that's a whole other discussion. So yet another option on that piccolo. Basically, sky's the limit when it comes to the Elite Piccolo. With both of our handmade custom piccolos, you're able to pair Monka head joints with them as well. The other piccolo that was initially debuted as the Burkart Fillion Piccolo is now our Burkart Professional Model Piccolo. Falls more in sort of that middle price range, I would say. Maybe if you're not someone who's ready to make the leap to spend, you know, upwards of $7,000 or more on your professional custom piccolo, you can opt for a custom handmade professional piccolo. That instrument is really designed to kind of just go, to be an easy piccolo to play. That design really originates even with the tone holes, the way the tone holes are sculpted. If I wish I had a photo. This is a good little insert here. We just recently launched a new website. So if people are curious to learn about
by the way.
more, thank you.
I already found myself.
Doesn't look
I was
like the
excited.
So we launched a new website, and the reason I bring it up right now is because if you're looking for more up close photos of some of these features, head to the website, because we've got really gorgeous photography, really close, that highlights a lot of these features. But like I said, the Pro Piccolo is made to be sort of the pick it up and go. Ethan talked about doublers earlier. A lot of people who maybe don't want to be the piccolo specialist in the orchestra all the time, they like the ease that's available to them with the Pro Piccolo. The price point is great, and then also, you know, available options in terms of head joint.
Can I just interject for one thing? It's $7,000 US, just for anybody, because we have people from all over the place, which works out to be almost $10,000 Canadian. So it's also a price point thing. But yeah, US dollars. Just
yeah, that would be the Elite Piccolo, and the professional Piccolo Daniel talked about is about $5,000 US. Yeah. And something that's also worth mentioning is that when you're looking at that $5,000 Piccolo range, some of our competitors would offer silver plated keys versus our keys are sterling silver. So you're really getting more for your money.
Yep,
and we love
exactly. So that's, I guess, the sort of the overview when we get to flutes and piccolos when we're at Burkhardt. I think, should we talk just a little bit more about features? Yeah.
There was one question about if there was ever any plans to extend the range of the piccolo, like to do like a low C sharp deal. That was one of the questions we had online. So
that's really, I thought you were going to expand the upper end, and I was like, oh. There's definitely not a plan for that.
No, we're good. Thanks, though.
But you know what? That is actually a really interesting question, and it's not something that I don't think any of us can answer right now, because it's not something that we have thought of. So, you know, we should circle back to this in the future, definitely. Yeah.
Great. Before we get off of piccolos.
Yeah.
So like talking about the Elite Piccolo, you know how it's for the top-notch piccolo specialist that wants the best of the best, of course. It's great for that. But there's another person that it's great for. Me. It's no secret at Burkhardt that I'm not what you call a confident piccolo player. Like I love working on them, and I've worked on thousands of them, but I get really shy playing them. You pick up an Elite and it just like plays itself, and you're playing it works. It did. It's kind of like an automatic, so it gives me the confidence like when I'm playing. So I think if I could get a Burkhardt Piccolo, that's what I would want to spring for, because you can just have confidence playing it.
Yep.
So
one thing that I love about working on Burkart Piccolos is that I know that I will always be able to get that, like, your fingertips just like zing, like you can feel the whole, like when it's sealing really well, the whole instrument just vibrates and it like zings all the way down and I don't get that from every single brand on every single piccolo, you know what I mean? But on Burkhardt, it's like I can always get them there, and that is just like, yeah,
it's fun.
Yeah, it's fun.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, we definitely take a lot of pride in our piccolo. Our flute years are younger, but we're, there's definitely a Burkhardt wave.
Yeah.
And I'm not talking about the head joint. I'm talking about that.
I was going to say, and they come with lots of different head joint options, which is nice for pick too.
Yeah.
They do. So where do you guys want to go next? Do you want to jump into features, or?
Perhaps something that's a little bit more production related, if you have a question.
I would love to hear more from Ellen. Yeah. Let's see. Do we have something production related? Well, yes, we do. Actually, my question. So my question, or my statement, is that I love that every Burkhardt that I see is subtly or not so subtly different in terms of the keywork design. Like every time I see a different Burkhardt, it's got like a different feature on it, and they come and they go. And so my question is like, how do you decide which features stay and which ones go? And like, for example, one of my personal favorites was that adjusting screw under the thumbs on the piccolos.
Yes.
There for a while, that would like take up the lost motion because that's the last thing that I do. And so when the last thing that I have to do is just to go chink instead of like, oh, let me re-glue that cork and sand it back in, and oh my God, I went too far. Let me rip that off and do it again. Right? Like I have a special place in my heart for that screw.
Me too. I
We all
actually had a
do.
conversation with a client because they were like, is it supposed to be like backed out there? And I'm like, oh, that is the best thing ever. Let me tell you about it.
Well, hopefully that's not the one screw that's loose. Huh? No.
I have a
So-
bottle of them.
So yes.
Yeah, no,
So Ellen, is that a good question for Ellen to answer?
that's a great question.
Okay,
But
great.
before Ellen answers, I think Ellen can definitely tap into the efficiency production
Mhm.
aspect of it. But I'll take, from the sales and customer player aspect of it. Yes, you do see Burkhardt instruments evolve over the years,
Mhm.
but every single stage is carefully thought out because Lillian is so like her ability of being so in tune with what the players need and our trend, it's amazing. Something that we always pay attention to is the ergonomics of the keys, from the beveling of the key cups to the shape of your G sharp lever to the side of your D sharp key, how it slides into your foot joint
Yes.
cluster. Literally every little thing is
Yes.
thought out.
And I have to say that as a smaller human being, so like I'm 5'2" on a good day. Rachel and I have talked about this. American flutes are often very, very uncomfortable for smaller people to play. And Burkharts are comfortable, and so are the Japanese flutes. And my theory is like, okay, well, Burkharts are designed by a woman, and like I am closer in size to most of like the Asian world, right? And it's so refreshing to like pick up a flute that fits my hand, and I don't have to put plugs in when I'm play testing it, because a lot of the other, especially vintage flutes, like I cannot play them without plugs in the right hand. I just don't have, I can't
Fall
have a good
through.
hand position, right, without hurting myself.
Thank you.
So I appreciate
Thank
that
you.
about Burkhardt a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, we
Me
actually
too.
get that feedback quite a lot, and it's such a huge compliment for us because we
I have
really do spend
skinny
so much
fingers.
time. And I mean, you ladies are petite, but we also get like big burly guys saying
Yeah.
your feet feel so sturdy, and
Yes.
it's like
So you
and
could
really
get both ends of that spectrum.
we
And
really
I think
incredible.
that's
Amazing.
that's the thing that I like, is that it works better for people with like skinny fingers and stuff like that, but it doesn't get delicate because of it. It's
Correct.
like built well, and it's built really, really solid. It just also happens to work for people who are a little bit smaller or have like wee little skinny fingers
Yeah.
like me.
I mean, hand
it's
it's
like
awesome.
a nice
It's
it's
not
like a
as-
nice American truck with a good turning radius.
Exactly.
It's-
But if you're playing, 4 or 5 hours a day, like those ergonomics are crucial, because like as a player, I mean, hand injuries. I mean, I had tendonitis in this thumb for, years, and it was just absolutely awful. And it's like, if you can't practice, then that's it. What are you gonna do?
And that's the thing, like and this goes back to our, perhaps our first philosophy is we want the players to enjoy their instruments. Like I would say, really, Burkhardt players are so happy and proud to have that instrument that they own, and they truly, it's like they have fun playing them. So thank you for saying that. And I'm sure Lillian would
your
really.
piccolo let me actually play piccolo properly, because I have a really, really long pinky, and it's hypermobile, so it dislocates. And the way that the D sharp key on the Burkhardt specifically, and only it actually lets me use my pinky without my finger clicking and dislocating. So yay.
Oh my gosh, that would be really annoying to play the piccolo.
It was.
Yeah.
I have it on flute, but it was actually like it made it almost impossible to play on like regular pick, because you can't move it.
Yeah, see, even this kind of feedback from, good
It was
technicians
amazing. It was
it's
life-changing.
very valuable for us. But Sarah, going back to your question,
Yes, please.
My answer is definitely from more of a player customer's perspective. But there are changes that might not affect the end user, but is so crucial in our instrument making process. And I think this is where, Ellen, you can chime in.
Yeah, I think the coolest thing about it is that we work together as a team. So we have our stringers, we have our body makers, and we, if we see something, we'll go. We've had many different changes that have been, people are thinking about different things. And the attention to the detail as far as cleaning up the keys, making them a certain shape. We do a lot of filing, a lot of sanding, and then we, with our polishing, it's super important. We have QC all along the whole entire way. So, and some of the unique characteristics you'll see, there are some subtle differences, and you'll see that because it depends on the stringer. Stringers have different ways of marking their instruments.
So for people who are watching and are going, but flutes don't have strings, can you explain what a stringer does?
What a stringer is. This is important. Yes.
Yeah, a stringer is somebody who they put all the keys, the cups and arms, solder all that together, and then they just take each key, they make it into another key, and then they eventually put all the keys on the body, and that's what a stringer is. That's what we.
And of all the jobs of building the flute, that is probably the biggest chunk, the biggest job, I would say. Am I correct?
Yeah, it's the middleman, because we have the body first, and then we have the middleman, which is the stringers, and
you're basically making the skeleton of it, like the bones,
It's the job that's going to affect the flute for its entire lifespan.
Yeah, you're setting up
a really great stringer. Is
no pressure there, guys.
You're setting up your finisher. You're setting up your finisher for success.
Exactly.
Yeah. Because that's where, when by the time it gets to the finisher, it's just really like butter to them. It's very easy for that. Everything's flat, everything's level, and the polish and the finish that we put on it before it gets to the finisher for polishing is just
very fine.
So we're really efficient that way, as far as making sure that the next person that gets it the way it should be, so it makes their job easier and successful. So it works right from doing a body run right up to the finisher.
And Ellen, you brought up, like, there's quite a bit of handmade element to making the instrument, the sanding, the filing, the shaping of the keys. Yeah. But the step that comes before that is something that's also really unique to Burkhardt. And I think Ellen and Daniel, which one do you?
Me.
Okay.
I'll take it, because we alluded to it at the very beginning of this when I showed the machine shop. So there are very traditional ways, or more traditional ways, that other manufacturers go about making a majority of their keys. And I'm not talking about like Ellen said about stringers. We're not talking about the whole key assembly. I'm talking about the little itty bitty individual components that are then later assembled into a key that is then made into a flute. So exactly, all by hand. So I mean, the way that people would do it for so long back in the day is casting, right? Casting is not really that reliable. It's messy. It has a lot of waste. So when you're trying to make a flute that's so incredibly precise, the individual components that make that up also have to be incredibly precise. And that is where our machine shop comes in. We have five or six CNC machines, which are computer numeric control machines. We've got machinists. You saw a photo of one earlier. We've got our mechanical engineer who are literally programming those machines to do quite a number of operations, both on piccolos and on flutes, to ensure that the pieces, the parts that we are making into the flutes are as close to perfect, within those incredibly tight tolerances as they possibly can be. I was thinking about this earlier today, because just about this whole process, and I think, you're making an instrument. I am not a technician, and I'm certainly not Ellen, who's had years and years of making experience. She strings, she does body, she does everything. So I'm sort of the outsider view looking in. I'm the player. And then, of course, been working at Burkhardt for a while. So I've picked up a few things. And I think you can stumble across a great instrument, but being able to make consistently a great instrument time and time again, that's where it becomes really crucial to be able to make precision parts. And that's what I admire so much about where I work, is everyone's, I mean, just, I don't even know, it's like their mantra to be able to make something so precise and so perfect. And that team effort is what makes such a consistent instrument.
It's almost like practicing a piece of music. You know, you develop that kind of consistency because you do it over and over again, smartly and efficiently. And that is really what our company core philosophy is about. And a fun story about our machines. So last year, Massachusetts, well, really countrywide, we had a mandate shutdown. And because flutes and piccolos, believe it or not, it's not an essential product, we actually had to take a break. However, because we have these CNC machines, therefore, we were actually able to obtain some government contract work. So we were producing essential, because as Daniel mentioned, like these little intricate geometrical shape things is what we do, and we're good at making these small parts in big volume. Therefore, we're able to get a couple contracts. And the last cool thing we did was, I think, parts for the US submarines. So we were deemed essential, and we were able to keep our doors open for a while. So that was pretty cool.
That is so
So
great.
that means our flutes are military grade.
Can be.
Many Burkart flutes and piccolos are played in the military
Yes,
bands
they
because
are.
they're
That's
100% USA made.
And
That's right.
Piccolos are considered a weapon, so.
Definitely so.
Well, I can't believe it, but it's just about 9 o'clock.
How did that happen?
I know. So we
may have to have you back.
there's nobody. We can always have you back, but there's nobody, breathing over our shoulders telling us that we have to stop. So if we want to take another 5 minutes and 10 minutes, and if there's something really essential that you guys want to hit on before we wrap things up, please do. So is there anything that you guys feel like you want to put out there to our audience before we go?
What else do you have on your question list?
Oh, let's see. Well, I think you actually answered there. The other question that we didn't get to was the differences between the professional versus elite piccolos and flutes. Sorry.
Sure.
Okay.
I can hit on that real quick, and then maybe we'll do a really quick description, because I know Rachel's dying because this is her baby, so we have to talk about it. So really the difference when it comes to professional and elite piccolo, I think Daniel did a really good description and on those two products. But when it comes to our flutes, don't let the names trick you. Professional simply means drawn tone hole flutes, and elite simply means solder. Mechanism is the same on both. It strictly just has to do with the price point of the instrument, the material we use, as well as the price range. So professional drawn tone hole, elite solder tone hole. So that's really the difference.
And you're getting the same precision and beautiful work and attention to detail on both instruments. It's just
absolutely
the difference in how the tone holes are made.
Yes, and then something that we're also really good at is the head joint pairing. So both of the elite or the professional flute, you can pair it with Burkhardt head joints, different materials, or Monka head joints, which he really offers. Talk about a variety of materials from different silver, gold, all the way to all the exotic wood. I mean, he is really quite amazing, and it's so cool to see Lillian and Toby communicate sometimes, just because these two great innovators, and they have similar philosophy, aesthetics. So it's just really awesome. Like this collaboration for the viewers, if you haven't tried a Burkhardt Monka combination, please give us a call, give Kim a call up in Canada, we'll make it happen for you. But what I really want to talk about is just briefly, because you can't talk about Burkhardt without bringing up one of our biggest contribution to the piccolo community, which is our Rizona Piccolo.
Yes, they're fabulous.
I love those things.
And Rachel was our Rizona specialist, both flute and piccolo. for many, many years. And we miss you every day. You're so amazing at what you do. And thank you for putting for helping us put so many wonderful Rizona instruments out there. And Rizona instrument is really special because it has all the Burkhardt quality, but at a lower price range. This is what we call a hybrid product. Partially is made and assembled overseas, but all the final QC, all the head joint design, head joint sound, the heart of Burkhardt, that's all done in shop in Shirley, Massachusetts. Daniel and I are both, testers. Every single Rizona instrument goes through our hands before we sell them to our dealers. It is a product that made by Burkhardt, but it's sold strictly through our dealers, such as Kim. And so just a shout out, and she's so supportive of our instruments, and I'm sure we're going to do really well in Canada.
The Rizona was, I think this is important because some people aren't really familiar with the Rizona line, and the Rizona Piccolo was something that I knew nothing about. One came into the shop and the client said, I don't really, and I fixed it up because it turns out it was just leaking, and I played it and I fell in love with Burkhardt, and that was the end of it. I was like, I need to get one of these piccolos, and that was so. Anybody
that was your gateway piccolo?
That was my gateway piccolo. That I had looked for like 20 years for the piccolo that fit my hand properly, that worked with my face properly, that just felt right. That was, and it was the piccolo that made me go, I could probably buy a Burkhardt blind, which is what I had to do because at the time there wasn't anybody providing trials in Canada. So I had to buy my Burkhardt blind, which was the scariest phone call I ever made because of the amount of money. But it was the Rizona line that actually made me fall in love with the Burkhardt piccolos because the quality was still there.
And I can personally attest from the inside that they care. We care so much from not only from the fact, the overseas company that helps us build them, but like just in-house, like everyone cares so much about those being a high quality product. There's just a lot of thought.
I love the fact that Rachel said we, which is actually a really good segue.
I can't help it.
What I'm about to say. Burkhardt, we actually have a very unique opportunity right now. We actually have 2 positions open, and we are hiring, we're expanding. So when Rachel said we, that really rang a bell. And really, Rachel, is no longer working with us in Shirley, Mass, but she is part of us. And I think that really is, going back to the philosophy, we are a company that really champions talent. And such a talent like Rachel, it's incredible, and really she has becoming an extension of Burkhardt. Now she's the Burkhardt Repair Center East, so we keep really close in touch with her, and we can't thank her enough. But going back to the 2 positions, how about Ellen, you take the finisher position, let the people know what that position is about, and Dan, do you want to take the head joint position?
Sure.
Okay.
I'll go with the finisher. The finisher position is basically will be a person who will be doing the final assembly, putting pads, installing pads and springs, things like that, polishing, and some repairs here and there. Because we do take in COAs and overhauls and things like that. So that would be another thing that they would do. And it's a full-time position, and we really need a finisher. So along with the head joint person. So.
Yeah. And how about Daniel? Tell us about head joint making position.
Yeah. So another full-time position at our shop in Shirley, Massachusetts. It's funny when you talk about the position of a head joint maker. There's obviously that final stage of, you're cutting a head joint to make it play and bring all the life and beautiful qualities of sound to that head joint. But even behind that, a person in this position is required to do the assembly before the head joint is cut. So the skills required include, all sorts of assembly, soldering, For more information, I'd say on both of these positions, any interested people should head to burkhardt.com/careers. Both positions are listed there in quite a bit of detail in terms of what they require, experience that would, make you a great fit for those jobs. Head there, and then there's also a place for you to submit both, I think, a cover letter and a resume. So we encourage anyone who would be interested in those positions, take a look at the website, burkhardt.com/careers.
Yeah, and these two positions do require any applicants to be a proficient flute player. So you have to be a flutist. And speaking from just personal experience, Rachel, do you remember I was hired as the direct sales and finisher for—
Wait, what?
Oh, yeah.
Did I know that?
You got— oh, did nobody know this? So I was actually hired as a finisher, and because Les had retired,
right?
And
yeah.
so at that time Burkhardt needed a finisher as well
2013?
as 2013, yeah. So as well as a sales rep. So my background is actually flute repair. So you'll see me chiming in again next week on your Patreon page. So until we found out that was just not possible for me to be finishing flutes while spending 90% of my time on the road.
Okay, now I remember. Yeah, I remember that.
So I do like a COA once a year, just to keep my chops up. But the reason why I'm saying that is Burkhardt, something again that we value so much is the enrichment of all of our employees. We do a lot of cross training. We want to make sure that every single person is not only good at what they do, but also they're able to experience that variety in their job, in their career and work. So just from my personal experience, I know I've consulted Rachel. I have got hands-on time with Lillian. And this is something that is just priceless. So please, if you're thinking about having a career in flute piccolo making, go on our website. You won't regret it.
Fabulous. All right. Well, any last words before we wrap things up?
Just a big thank you to you four, because honestly, I know there was actually one question that you didn't ask me about how, as far as how do we develop a dealer, for Burkhardt, like how do we expand our network?
Right.
And without going into too much detail, one qualification, I should say, that we look for anyone who wants to sell Burkhardt instrument is they have to have, it's mandatory, they have to have a repair facility or capability to repair instrument as set up, because that is so crucial. And hats off to you four, because that is what you guys do. And not only that's what you guys do, but what you guys do so well.
But especially, for piccolos, I mean, it's so dependent on the climate that they arrive in. I mean, that mechanism is going to move, the wood is going to move. Like, you have to be able to set up a piccolo well for the area that it's living in.
Yeah, to have an understanding of the instrument.
Absolutely.
So, so you guys make our jobs easier.
That's why I was so excited to be able to be a dealer out here, because you're on the West Coast, or on the East Coast, which is awesome. But I'm all the way on the West Coast, and it's a whole different world out here. So it's nice to be able to give both locations.
Well, I mean, thank you all so much for your time tonight. It was just, I can't believe that was an hour more. Like, it just felt like 5 minutes.
I think we need a part 2.
We do.
Yeah, we should definitely do a part 2.
Absolutely. Because, we barely talked about, so many things that we barely talked about.
Will there be cookies in part 2?
We could have had cookies in part 1.
I didn't order them in time.
Okay, well, so definitely part 2.
Part 2.
Okay, so for those of you still watching, thank you for joining us for this whole fantastic hour. If you only tuned at the end and you want to catch the beginning, this will be up on YouTube tomorrow on our YouTube channel. It'll also be available immediately on the Facebook page. And for next week, we're going to have everybody back again on our Patreon, like we talked about before. So if you are one of our elite repair geeks, please join us there. And you can hop on live and pick everybody's brains. And we'll keep the questions form up. So any techs who have specific questions about how to work on different aspects of, the pinless mechanism, or how to adjust piccolos, for your particular climate, any question that you can think of, that would come up as you repair, pop those into that same link that we have. It's the bit.ly/Burkart Qs. We'll keep that going for next week. And thank you to everybody who's watching tonight, and huge thank you to Ethan and Ellen and Daniel for joining us. It was such an immense pleasure and an honor to have you with us tonight. So we really appreciate it.
Thank you all.
Excellent.
Thank you.
All right. So that's it from all of us. We will see you whenever we see you next.
Stay healthy, and I hope to see everybody in person soon.
Excellent. All right. Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.